session chair and the panelists to please come on stage and take their seats, and then we'll start the session. Before we begin, I would like to request everyone to please put their mobile phones on silent if you haven't already. We're moving on to the last theme for today, which is industrial development and technological innovation. The session chair for this theme is Ms. Piyush Chaudhary, who is the founding president of Agahi. The themes that we'll be covering in this session is CPEC as a catalyst for regional development, industrial innovation and value addition, enhancing information and communication technology, and building a framework for managing cybersecurity threats. I will be handing the floor now to the session chair to take the session forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Zunaira. It's a real honor to be here sitting among such eminent speakers and guests. I do understand that this session has been organized right after lunch. So bear with us as we take you all through disruptions and sort of changes that is happening worldwide. But before we move on to some of the speakers that are here today with us, we like to sort of open up the stage to the thought process of what the industrial revolutions have all been about. So from the beginning of the first industrial revolution that started with steam engines, which was predominantly led by the British, moving on to the second industrial revolution, which was basically electricity and the access to electricity in different factories and how it led to mass productions. Then moving on to the third industrial revolution, which was predominantly run by mainframes, computers, originated from the US, Germany, and Japan. Now moving towards the fourth industrial revolution, a concept laid by Professor Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum that basically talks about how to use technology in terms of improving efficiencies, productivity, and predominantly just focusing on technologies alone. While we look at Pakistan through the lens of all these 3-4 different industrial revolutions, we must also not forget that there has been groundwork being made for the fifth industrial revolution, which is harmonization of human mind and machine. When you say that, a lot of the context in the conversation and the policy discourse that we come to hear about in Pakistan in the last at least 5 to 6 years, the conversations in the Islamabad circuit is also revolving around technology, which is essentially a good thing. But at the same time challenging, because at what framework would you actually see how cyber peace needs to happen, how meaningful connectivity needs to happen, how relationship China needs to be seen, and what would the framework for perhaps regulating the tech sector would need to look like. And while we grapple with all these complexities and challenges, we have with us engineer Alan Salim, who is going to be explaining to us how building a framework for managing cybersecurity threat is an essential feature in the fifth industrial revolution. Alan is going to be joining us over Skype. We do have him with us. So Alan, the floor is all yours.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, fellow speakers, and of course, our moderator, chair, Ms. Puresh. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Indulge me, I'd like to present to you the cyber strategy that I authored for the Philippines, in order to cope with challenges in the fifth industrial revolution. As we all know, just recently, the Philippine aviation has been, you know, well, we experienced some glitch in our system. For example, the power supply system was, well, it was not functioning when during the New Year's Day. So the government was able to conclude that it is not cyber attack. But for us cyber security practitioners, we are not yet convinced that it doesn't involve cyber systems, no? Or cyber attacks or cyber threats. So in 2017, the Department of ICT of the Philippines published the first national cybersecurity strategy of the country. So if I may allow to share my slide. So in 2017, as I mentioned, we published the first national cyber strategy of the country. It was published in May of 2017, and it addresses current issues on cyber threats in the country. So as you all know, in 2016, there has been a cyber crime that happened in the banking sector in the Philippines with the illegal transfer of $81 million from the RCBC Bank of the country through the SWIFT. So with that, many cyber attacks were also experienced by the government in terms of our electoral system. So in 2016, I was appointed Assistant Secretary for Cybersecurity of the country. And my goal was to craft the first national cybersecurity strategy of the Philippines. So we called it the National Cybersecurity Plan 2022 of the country as mandated by the law. So what is this plan? This plan has this framework. So, you know, the government has different mandates. For example, the DICT, which is the Department of ICT of the country, was tasked to lead the protection through the National CERT, or the Computer Emergency Response Team. Thus, to coordinate the national protection, prevention, and mitigation of recovery from cyber incidents. So, and so on and so forth. So the DND will lead for national cyber defense. So the DND is the Department of National Defense. It will defend the military infrastructure from cyber attacks or cyber threats. On the other hand, the DOJ, or the Justice Department, and the local government department, together with the police and the investigation bureau, will lead for investigation, enforcement, and prosecution. So these three will go hand in hand as part of the government strategy to curb not just cybercrime, but also cyber security threats to the country, and as well as cyber attacks. So in this red line, it's the intelligence community that supports the human intelligence and of course, and also the cyber threat intelligence through the provision of a cyber threat intelligence and attribution centers in our intelligence community. Supporting that is the National Platform for Cyber Intelligence or Cybersecurity that has a shared situational awareness platform for information sharing. You know, in most countries that I visited, information sharing is one of the biggest problems in the implementation of their strategy. Of course, I cannot deny that here in our country it's still the same. But this strategy, the cornerstone of this strategy is this framework, no, to identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And the coordination with the public, private, and international partners is vital to this framework. So with all of this actors, we need one interagency body that will lead for the policy direction, policy coordination among concerned agencies, as well as the private sector. So it's called the National Cybersecurity Interagency Committee. So this is the framework, the current framework of the Philippines as regards national cybersecurity. So what are the 4 key imperatives of this plan? I was only given 12 minutes, so bear with me. I will explain this in as much as I can in 12 minutes. So there are 4 key imperatives of the plan. The first is the protection of critical infrastructure, or the protection of critical information infrastructure, that's infrastructure, and the protection of government networks, both public and the military. That's the second imperative. The third one is the protection of businesses and supply chain. And the last one is the protection of individuals. So the Philippines has identified 13 critical information infrastructure: the train system, emergency system, aviation system, water system, power grids, shipping, government, media, telecoms, banks, BPO, and health. BPO is a business process outsourcing, and it has contributed so much in our economy because of the voice and other business process outsourced by other countries. So in every key imperative, we have activities, programs. For example, in the protection of critical infrastructure, the government will ask or will require the critical information infrastructure owners to register and to follow critical elements, like, for example, the seal of cybersecurity, the assessment and penetration testing of their infrastructure, and as well as the contribution of each sector to the entire cybersecurity threat and intelligence platform information sharing. So with this, I believe, if implemented, could deter cyber attacks. Non-state actor or state actors, doesn't matter, as long as they have the SOC to prevent cyber security threats. The next one is the protection of government networks. As I've said, the government are required, the agencies of the government are required to create their own CERT or SOCs. So for example, one government agency is handling the data for the birth certificates or death certificates, the statistics of the Philippines. They are mandated to install the Security Operations Center to protect the data, because we also have the privacy law that mandates all companies and government entities to protect the data of the Filipino citizens as well as foreigners in our country. So we call that the PII protection. Okay. So with that, the government issued a memorandum circular for a robust and secure introduction of SOCs, of processes, incident response to the government, within the government, for proper dissemination of every agency of the Philippine government. So that is part 2, the key imperative number 2 of the national strategy of the country. The next one is the protection of supply chain. So here, there is a so-called the common criteria program that has been promoted to validate all devices or equipment that goes to the country, that are used, in data centers, that are used in telecommunications. For example, the 5G. Last year, we organized a validating team, to validate the 5G equipment testing. So there's an equipment testing laboratory that will be installed in the government to validate common criteria to validate new equipment that will be used in a critical information infrastructure. And the last one is the protection of individual. Here, we integrate cybersecurity into the curriculum. So most universities here in the country are offering cybersecurity courses, cybersecurity programs. In fact, in 2018, one university has offered the BS in cybersecurity already, and major universities are now offering cybersecurity as an elective course or minor courses for engineering programs. Aside from that, the government is also conducting awareness program for the local government units, for the academic sector, helping the companies, private companies, be aware of cyber threats by issuing bulletins down the lines, no? From the LGU to the companies to the other agencies of the government are required to conduct cybersecurity awareness program. So with that 4 key imperatives, we believe this strategy can now be, the strategy for cyber resiliency can now be achieved. So we want to have a whole of nation, whole of government approach, whole of society approach to curb cyber attacks, to curb cyber threats, ultimately cyber crimes. In the Philippines, we already have the cybercrime law, and we already acceded to the convention, the Budapest Convention, in 2018. So with that, I believe this strategy can be updated next. This year it will be updated to the National Cybersecurity Plan 2028. No, considering the COVID-19 pandemic, because the threat landscape has changed. Before, working from home and doing conferences like this, normally I go to Pakistan or I go to US or London, no? But now I'm here in front of you. With the help of this technology, I was able to attend the same conference. I hope I think my 12 minutes is already over, and I think if we share information, if we share threat intelligence, based on the cyber threat platform, we can work together, the Asia Pacific, the Southeast Asia, well, the world. If we share intelligence, we can curb cyber attacks. Thank you so much, and have a pleasant afternoon.
Thank you, Alan. Hopefully, Alan should be joining us for the Q&A session also. Let's see.
I will.
But before we move towards our next speaker, let's sort of imagine the first revolution took 200 years to settle. The second revolution took 100. The third only 50, and the fourth in less than 20 years. So when we start to talk about the fifth industrial revolution and the sort of cyber, even if we were to look at the cyber governance framework that China is putting together, it is quite a monstrous task. And for Philippines to sort of start thinking along building a platform on cyber intelligence, it's a step in the right direction. So our next speaker, Harun Sharif Sahab, who has been the state minister for the investment board, is a leading economist, sits on various fellowship programs, also has worked on the CPEC program, is going to share us where CPEC is really headed in terms of how industrial development is going to take place in the country.
Assalamu alaikum ji, good afternoon. Good to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the kind introduction. So we had a session on cybersecurity, which is quite relevant to us in the time of all the audio and video leaks and whatnot. But this is an area which is emerging on a serious note what I see, the intensity of technological competition, particularly between China and the US, will have an impact on CPEC, what I'm going to talk about. So how much time do I have? 8 to 10 minutes. Okay. So let me then bring the focus to a few points. I'll spend 2-3 minutes. We need to understand. I think the word CPEC is perhaps the most written or most talked about word in Pakistan in the past, let's say 10 years or so. But let's try and understand what does it mean. So China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, it's a framework, part of the China's bigger desire to connect with the markets. Why they are doing it? Let's look at the academic argument. The academic argument is that we are moving away from the times of globalization to what we call, more opening up regional markets, where proximity, which is the geographical proximity, will have a major comparative advantage in terms of your productivity and your production, your competitiveness, how you deal with the world. So basically, China is more than 70% of the global production at the moment, industrial production. And they really wanted to open up new markets around it so that, they diversify and they reach out to the markets. That's how it was envisaged. Why framework? It has different phases. In Pakistan, the first phase, which we talk about, it is infrastructure, power projects, port development, roads, connectivity infrastructure. The second phase, which I was leading, is precisely industrial development. Now, a little bit of economics here. Any public sector investment needs to be looked at from the lens of public welfare. So I would open up a question to all of you that how do you see that CPEC's investment, how much welfare gains, so far you can envisage, okay? So one needs to look at the argument. Any infrastructure investment from public sector or private sector should be able to attract investment. If it does not attract investment, it becomes a Lahore to Islamabad motorway, which has no economic activity. Very nice way to go to Lahore for the rich and the elites, and economic returns negative. Okay, still subsidized. So we need to look at the economic return on an economic corridor very carefully from these lenses. Now, there are 3-4 lenses. By the way, about 40 to 50% of economic corridors fail globally for these very reasons, because countries get into infrastructure development only, and they do not make the institutional and policy level changes to use it for the welfare and economic gains. So it becomes a building, and we are pretty good in making buildings. Institutions follow later on. So what happens is, we need to understand that the real potential of CPEC, of today's seminar's topic, that how it can leverage technology and industry and other things. The onus is on Pakistan to develop a policy and institutional framework to convert it, steer it, focus it, narrows it down to the Pakistan's need. So what are Pakistan's need, particularly in the context of the discussion today? Pakistan is stuck, and I'll stop here. Basically, we are stuck on most of the things, be it governance, be it economic policy and other. But there are 4 fault lines which any investment should address in Pakistan if we need to get out of it. First of all, we are stuck, we don't have dollars. Okay, I'll simplify it, which is what in fancy terms we say macroeconomic, distortions. So we buy more, we sell less, we have a gap, we fill that gap not from investment but borrowing. Now we have reached a stage where the debt is becoming such a big burden, and not many people are willing to even give you debt. First fault line. So how should CPEC address it? Okay. Second fault line, neither we have production to feed 230 million people, nor we have the productivity to have products which have higher value addition. Okay. There's a very clear difference between production. So we end up importing essentials because we don't produce that much and we don't have the value added part of our production. So that is the second fault line, so that we are even importing essentials, food items, oil, other things. How can CPEC address it? Third is we have 2.5 million young people coming in the labor market every year. Now, with a 2% GDP growth, we can only accommodate, I think, out of that, let's say, about 200,000 out of the 2.5 million. So, baki kahan jayenge? That is the third question, which any public investment should look at in the context of Pakistan. So we need jobs. And the fourth is that we are which is linked to the first one. We are desperately looking at value-added export markets. So can CPEC actually deal with that? The industrial revolutions, the way the world is going, frankly, we have missed the boat. But if we need to catch up, the word in economics and in reality is a trade-off. Are we willing to make a trade-off? 30 years back, when Manmohan Singh offered that trade-off to India, when India's reserves were as bad as ours today, and he basically put that on table. Do you want to have a dignified, sustainable economy? Or do you want to continue borrowing from IMF and others and struggle day by day? BJP lost elections after that reform program. But at least in 20-25 years, India reached to a level that today they don't need IMF or anybody else, whereas we are stuck in that. And we need to think CPEC in these lenses. Now, how we have seen CPEC so far, first of all, it's a good thing. There's no doubt about it. It will become effective if we take these tick marks and tailor it accordingly. That is where the challenge lies in our ability to convert it into something. It's like a toy. If you don't know how to use it or play with it, it will remain a toy. That is as we have been when I was the chairman board of investment. I was told all the brochures, everything government has, our wonderful location, our strategic location, our population. Private sector, frankly, knows far more than that about us. You need to have a selling economic value proposition, and that CPEC should develop. And linking to that, there are 4 lenses any economic corridor can be seen. Okay. So the first lens is a strategic lens, which lots of our diplomats and our security people look at. Is it strategically helpful to Pakistan? I presume it is. And there is a lot of thinking being done on the connectivity part. Only connectivity is linked to the strategic side of that, mostly. Second lens I have explained is the economic lens. I'm afraid we haven't done much on that. I tried to bring some focus, try to do that. But Pakistan, neither the private sector nor the public sector, both are not ready for it. When I say not ready for it, either willingly or capability-wise, both sides. Okay. Now, the third lens is the popular political lens. I think we have used it very well. And we have overused it to the level that it has become a liability in the Western media. Because we started selling it that it is the answer for all our problems. Selling it for gaining votes, selling it to a constituency. I think that's a grave mistake. And now even China, if you look at the 5 priorities of China, the connectivity is not among the top 5 because there has been so much criticism on this whole thing. You need to have another lens. This is a region which is connected, but it has a cultural dimension. It has a knowledge dimension. And we haven't invested in the knowledge, and I will spend last 2 minutes. That is linked to what I'm trying to say. So in terms of industrial and technology, the structure of Pakistan's economy has not changed for 35 years. let me explain. जो आपकी GDP growth है, उसके अंदर only thing which has gone up are services. Agriculture's share and industry's share has remained there, or in fact declined. Okay. Now the challenge is with the population we have and the competition we have, this structure cannot lead you to the growth level which is needed to feed those 2.5 million people coming in the market. Okay. We need 7.5% progressive growth, which creates job, which is inclusive for 10 years. हमारी अगर 35 साल की हम growth की curve देखें, it is slightly below 4% at an average and decline. So clearly this structure does not help neither the industrialization nor the fault lines which I have identified. Ab CPEC ke andar what we need to look at is, if I were, still in charge, I tried to change it, but the forces which did not want to change it did not let me do that. The first and the foremost was the 9 economic zones. That's China's model. And one of the zones which was to be done in Islamabad was, I'm glad we have somebody talking about technology zone. We need emerging technologies, not only ITs, but to raise the level of value addition, which is the productivity. Hamari productivity of any product is so low. When I went to China almost 3-4 times with the Prime Minister, China being our friend, उन्होंने हमें शंघाई में stall दिया, इधर China का stall था exhibition में, यहाँ हमारा stall था. So China के अंदर I was seeing artificial intelligence, I was seeing, Huawei's, the ITs displayed there. इधर मेरा stall था football, kinnu, cotton bale, एक और चीज. I showed the Prime Minister, ये एक bridge है. जब तक आपकी productivity नहीं बढ़ती है, you will continue selling grey cloths and kinnus and footballs, which will not have enough dollars to pay your bills. And that's what precisely is happening. So what is needed is कि जो economic zones होते हैं, they need to be tailored to benefit what we need. It is not a piece of land जिसको आप plot की तरह बेच देते हैं. अभी भी हमारा economic zone अगर आप कराची जाएं तो 35 million का एकड़ है industrialist के लिए. Okay? मोदी साहब जो बेचते हैं वो ₹1 का एकड़ है. Because the idea is not to sell land. The idea is to basically increase productivity. So we need to look at it from the lens of productivity, and China would be willing to help. अब 2 models हैं, and in my closing, देखिए ना, एक model ये है, China के लिए तो बड़ा आसान है, वो यहाँ आएंगे, पैसे कमाएंगे, and why shouldn't they? देखिए ना, अगर उनका hire बन रहा है, चीजें बन रही है, parts वहाँ हैं, वो भेजते हैं, आप यहाँ पेज कसते हैं, and you start selling. Okay, but is that helping our skill level? Is that helping production here? It is not. अब क्या हो रहा है कि अब हमारे पास वो parts लेने के पैसे खत्म हो गए. Let's be honest. अब क्या होगा? Maybe some of the companies will be forced to develop those technologies here and move towards some technological advancement. But at the moment, what's happening is that we are asking for export credit from them. यदि आप हमें parts दे दीजिए, हम फिर पेज लगाएंगे और आप हमसे 1 साल पैसे ना मांगे. That's what in simple it is. So that is where, so there are 3 things in closing we need to focus on. अगर तो हमने CPEC को, we need to steer it towards, there is nothing like free markets in these economies. You need to direct the markets, not control the markets. Direction trade-off से होती है. हमने subsidized patronage वाली industry रखनी है या competitive or technology linked or value addition वाली रखनी है. That's the trade-off. और अगर वो trade-off करनी है, then the CPEC investments and economic zones need to be tailored accordingly. जहां पर technology आए, जहां पर value addition हो, जहां पर लोग train हो, and we should be able to export our people as well, ताकि वो हमें remittance भेजें. That is what Pakistan needs. Otherwise, if we open up space for McDonald's and KFCs and China to come and assemble phones and sell us, they will be very happy to do it. Would we have an economic return and progressive development return on that? I have my serious doubts. So हमें एक तो public policy intervention कुछ brutally change करनी पड़ेगी. हमें कुछ institutional changes करेंगी. I am afraid these things cannot happen in the government ministries. It is the private sector and the independent institutions that lead it. Even China had to create NDRC. They could have done it through their foreign office. So a specialized space for professionals which design these interventions and take it forward. It's not still late, but we are struggling on both public policy के जो हमारी trade-offs हैं और उसकी development, but also institutional delivery की trade-off. अब चीनी तो आगे सब कुछ नहीं करेंगे, we need to do it ourselves. So unless and until we build that capability, and I would close, our fault lines will remain. Now they are touching the red lines. There's a fault line which we say binding constraint. But जब binding constraint एक level को cross कर जाता है, तो वो red line पे आ जाता है. ये जो 25 लाख labor market में आ रहे हैं, अगर इसमें से 2 लाख को नौकरी मिल रही है, that is a red line. देखिए ना, these guys would be a security threat internally and externally. अगर आपके जो पे करने के लिए dollars नहीं है, and now people are even reluctant to lend you money, it's a red line. So we need to now take some decisions and transform from there. अगर हमारी export जो है वहीं पर फंसी हुई है, that's a red line. So we need to basically look at, let some industries die. क्या हो जाएगा? मैं आपको आज भी चिली से चीनी जो है $20 सस्ती पाकिस्तान से खरीद सकता हूँ. Why do we need this all sugar milk here? पाकिस्तान ने आज तक एक कार ना एक्सपोर्ट किया ना लगता है करेगा. Why are we, protecting that industry? ये सवालात हैं जो पब्लिक पॉलिसी के अंदर आने की जरूरत है. अगर फ्यूचर ऑफ जॉब्स की तरफ जाना है, टेक्नोलॉजी की तरफ जाना है, वैल्यू एडिशन की तरफ जाना है, then policy and institutional intervention are a must. Current state में, I'm afraid it will again become an infrastructure deal, which will have very low economic returns. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That's like quite a daunting task and frightening at the same time. How many decisions, what decision do we must take in order to set the trajectory right? In a small research effort, it did appear in the Pakistan State of Future Index that the country does feel like it's moving in the right direction. However, contrary to a lot of what you said, perhaps puts it in a very different context altogether. Javed Iqbal, who is the Chief Commercial Officer at the Special Technology Zone Authority. So let's start with, have we missed the boat with technologies such as Neuralink, which really just enhances human capabilities, kernel flow, which just maps your brain activation just to understand how the mind works? Have you really missed the boat?
Well, thank you, Piyush. Tough act to follow, sir. And appreciate IRS doing this very thought-provoking last couple of days. Boats are interesting. I think ये boat वाला जो एक metaphor है, ये consistently हमारे लिए बना है. And ever since I was a kid, one of the things I've been hearing is कि पाकिस्तान एक बड़े interesting crossroads पर खड़ा है. वो road हम cross ही नहीं कर पा रहे किसी तरह. I think वो घूम के वापस आ रही है. Now, if we sort of take a technological lens on it, which is sort of my area of focus and expertise as well, technology के बहुत सारे ऐसे boats हैं जो कि ना सिर्फ miss हो गए हैं, उन पे कैच अप करने की बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत है, लेकिन बहुत सारे ऐसे बोट्स हैं जो अभी बने भी नहीं हैं, वो पानी में नहीं उतरे. And if we have to somehow partake in those economic value chains of those boats, two of the examples, Piyush, that you mentioned, there's a lot of rethinking we have to do across the board and reimagine Pakistan as a tech-enabled economy, जो कि अभी नहीं है. लेकिन कुछ pockets of excellence exist. जैसे पिछले 20 साल से Ministry of IT जो Haris bhi jahan represented hain. They've made a lot of strides in how software is done, websites are done from here, apps are done from here, etc. हमारी यूथ की एक अनऑफिशियल एंगेजमेंट और ऑफिशियल एंगेजमेंट बड़ी जबरदस्त हो गई है. It's staggering. You talked about a little bit of a glimpse of hope there, Purush. Pakistan is number 4, almost tipping on number 3 on freelancers in the world. The number of freelancers in the world. Now, freelancing hai kya? A kid has a laptop, a skill set, and connectivity to the world, and you're solving other people's problems as well. So, जो हमारा जॉब का मसला है कि पाकिस्तान में ये जॉबें हैं, ये कहाँ खप सकते हैं बच्चे. I think COVID suggested, as well as these connectivities have enabled, ये jobs available हैं दुनिया में. We can be that worker of the world, etc. as well. लेकिन ये किया कैसे जाए? And if we rethink ourselves into more of a tech economy, क्या ऐसी चीजें हैं जो exist करती हैं? क्या ऐसी चीजें जो अभी बनानी हैं? जो exist करती हैं, उनमें बहुत सारे ऐसे laws हैं जो टेक्नोलॉजिकली आपको उस तरफ एटलीस्ट ले जाने में मदद करते हैं. मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ आईटी हैज अ डिजिटल पॉलिसी. एसटीजीए का एक एक्ट पास हुआ था दैट ब्रिंग्स जोन्स इनटू द मिक्स एज वेल. वी हैव myriads of banking regulations. State Bank is a tremendous regulator, better than most countries in the world, जो कि बड़ी फॉरवर्ड थिंकिंग के साथ चल रहा है. एसईसीपी के पास सैंड बॉक्सेस हैं जो कि कोऑपरेशंस को इवॉल्व कर रहे हैं, एटसेट्रा. लेकिन हम थोड़ा सा अपने गवर्नमेंटल स्ट्रक्चर्स में भी फंस गए. इंटरेस्टिंग बात यह है कि बिटवीन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ आईटी, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉमर्स, एसटीजीए, हर तरह का इदारा वगैरह, अगर आप मिनिस्ट्रियां, कमीशंस, अथॉरिटीज वगैरह गिने तो ऑलमोस्ट 40 तो हो जाती है. एंड वी आर ऑल स्टेपिंग ऑन ईच अदर्स टोज. जब गूगल या कोई ऐसा हमारे मुल्क में आता है तो हम अपने तरीके से उसको कुछ ना कुछ बेचने की कोशिश करते हैं. वो जब आके आपने सर बोर्ड ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट का जिक्र किया, इंटरेस्टिंगली ये जो जोन्स कॉन्सेप्ट है जो कि ऐसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस लाइक अ गूगल एंड फेसबुक एंड अदर्स वुड कम इन, बिल्ड देयर इनोवेशन सेंटर्स, सॉफ्टवेयर सेंटर्स, एटसेट्रा. हम अपने प्रोडक्ट्स उनको उन तरह बेच नहीं पाते बिकॉज पॉलिसी वाइज वी आर नॉट क्लियर. द स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन्स कम अंडर द बोर्ड ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट. स्पेशल टेक्नोलॉजी जोन्स कम अंडर एसटीजीए जो कि कैबिनेट का इदारा है. एक्सपोर्ट प्रोसेसिंग जोन फर्क है, सीपेक के जोन अलग हैं, एटसेट्रा. सो I think एक enabling environment where we are able to sort of not only build this for ourselves, but also project it easily, that someone can come in and plug and play into our economy and partake in it as well. Second, skill set का आपने जिक्र किया. साल में 25,000 ऐसा बच्चा होता है जो कि किसी semblance of science या टेक्नोलॉजी या सॉफ्टवेयर या हार्डवेयर या वगैरह के जुमरे में ग्रेजुएट होता है. It's shocking to see that only 3,000 of those 25,000 are immediately deployable at clients, local clients. I'm not talking about global clients as well. So हमारे यहाँ एक उस understanding का भी बहुत बड़ा फुकदान है, which does not help us put these kids onto that map as well. So ना सिर्फ वो लॉस को थोड़ा सा स्ट्रीमलाइन करना है, बल्कि हमें इन सारी एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ थिंकिंग एंड लर्निंग को आगे लेके जाना है. बिकॉज ये वो वाले एस्पेक्ट्स नहीं है कि हमारे यहाँ के मजदूर मिडल ईस्ट जाके उनकी एक्चुअल फिजिकल डेवलपमेंट में हिस्सा लेके दरहम और दिनार वापस भेज के हमारे मुल्क को चला लेंगे. दिस इज नॉलेज इकोनॉमी. एंड टू बिल्ड concepts, to build frameworks, to build programs, to build apps, etc., you have to have a certain type of a mindset that lets you solve problem with, productive, creative thinkings, etc. वो हम उस तरह के environments अपने स्कूल में भी provide नहीं कर रहे, right? So हम in essence Piyush, third industrial revolution और fourth industrial revolution को एक साथ बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. और जो आप बात कर रही हो, that's the fifth aspect of that. ये नीचे वाले जब तक हम tech as a country's narrative नहीं देखेंगे, unless we have a Babar Azam of tech sitting there that every child wants to aspire to be, and unless we connect all these small pockets of excellence that do exist, I mean, connectivity देखें जो I think Haris का forte है, we're very connected. In fact, when we were at GSMA in Barcelona, I sat through a session by African countries, and they said कि हमारा तो कोई telco infrastructure नहीं है, हमारा कोई internet service provider infrastructure नहीं है, and we have all sorts of bandwidths also there as well. तो हमने बहुत जगह Piyush strides किए हैं, बहुत जगह pockets exist करते हैं, हमें उन सबको किसी तरह मिला के एक तरफ लेके जाना है, and we have to build a vision for them, which will help us sort of take on these next generational challenges as well, because next generation का जो बच्चा अब आ रहा है, generation alpha, you know, the ones that are born after 2010, they're used to playing with the machines. उनसे अगर आप बात करें तो they actually prefer spending time on the phone. Now हम इस पे वो तो बड़ा करते हैं, but think about why that is. It's because that machine's not judging. It's throwing at them the very intelligent ways of grappling that child's attention. Now वो डांटती है machine, now वो थपड़ा मारती है, you know, things like that. So we are getting ready for that generation जिसके हाथ में फोन तो पकड़ा दिए हैं, लेकिन हमें ये नहीं पता आगे करना क्या. और इस उम्र के हमारे पास 130 मिलियन बच्चे हैं. So we have to start thinking के ये जो environments जो हमने provide करने हैं, how do we conceptualize this to build those foundational elements? Some of them, like I said, exist. And how do we take them into a journey to that next level, जिसके साथ मिलके हम वो वाले, you know, the neurology, the way the brain works, the way the AI works, the way the cyber works, etc. उनके problems उस lens से with some sort of a Pakistani flavor solve कर सकें. That would be my answer.
That was spot on. So there is a generation alpha that we get to deal with in our own cities, but there is also a generation alpha in the rural part of the country, mostly which is the disconnected part of the country. So we have Haris Chaudhary, who is the CEO for Universal Service Fund. He's going to explain to you how he's managed to bridge the rural-urban divide in terms of digital infrastructure.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Piyush and IS for inviting me over. You know, we had a very interesting discussion about, you know, challenges being faced by Pakistan. And if you think about a solution or a low-hanging fruit, which is something which is going to take us, you know, ahead of, or we can easily get out of the challenges, I think would be IT sector, ICT. You know, as Javed Sahab mentioned, we've got 130 million under 35, and which can be used for IT and other skill sets, and they can be sent abroad so we can get some foreign remittance when they can send through to their households or to themselves. But what do we need to do with that? I think most important thing is that we have to have a right skill which we needs to be developed in them. Because as someone just mentioned that we've got 35,000 graduates and only 3,000 graduates get the job. Unfortunately, the quality of education is not there, or if it's there, it's not the right skill set which is required by the market, either in Pakistan or outside Pakistan. We've been talking to different international institutes, international companies, like Ericsson, they want to hire, but they don't have the right resources. All the Europe, North America, even in Asia, they want to hire Pakistan, but we have not been able to build the right skill set. So we're going for a degree, 4 years degree, 2 years degree, 3 years degree, but not the skill set which is actually in demand or what we are looking for internationally and globally. We have to prepare ourselves for that. When we had this difficult time in 2020 with COVID, that's where we realized how important connectivity is. And myself and my organization works for rural communities, and we want to bridge the digital divide. And that's where we felt how important it is. Because in Pakistan, 60% of the population is from the rural areas. And we've got very limited resources in rural areas. So there is in one district, one tehsil, what we call as that they've got one hospital or a couple of schools. And when they were shut, nothing was there. If there were connectivity, at least they will be able to connect, or at least they can have a routine in life. So wherever the connectivity was there, the life was to some extent normal. And where there was no connectivity, there was no life. And that pushed us as an organization, as a nation, and as a country, and as our ministry, that needs to speed up, and we need to expedite. And wherever the connectivity is required, we need to provide it ASAP. And I understand that, obviously in the rural areas, the purchasing power and the commercial case is not very viable for the telecom operators. So that's where this fund comes in and provides support to the telecom operators so they can lay out their infrastructure and deploy the towers which is required to have a meaningful connectivity. When I say meaningful connectivity, what does that mean? Which means I've got a reliable internet, it's affordable, and it's also protected. So that's what we're working on with this. And then the last 3 years, COVID has pushed us. And we also felt that connectivity has become a passion for me now, because I feel that what I could have done yesterday should have been done day before yesterday, because this is something which is going to take them ahead. I'll just narrate you a simple story. So there's a goat outside Sakhar, and there's a young girl who's 19 years old, made an Instagram account through connectivity because we have given a 4G over there. And then she started going to Karachi and pick up the different clothing designer store, local designers, and through this Instagram page, she used to do it in her village and go and in a small, village near her location, start making an earning. That does not even make her socially or economically powerful, but also made her feel that she can contribute to the family income. So she ensured that her younger brother, who's 14 years old, can go to Sakhar to a good school and even get into college. And then, there's an example from Chitral. This girl used to do amazing embroidery and started selling through Facebook. So there was a middleman in between. So we used to get the most of it, and she would get very less. So connectivity has not only played a very important role in the economic, but also in the social sector, in that wherever the connectivity has been provided. But we have to think now way forward that if we talk about certain facts and numbers, the average age in Japan or Europe is 45 plus, and in Pakistan is 22. And the one which is very close to Pakistan in India is 28. So now going forward down the road, 10 years and 15 years, we have to see where will be the workforce, the labor force will be going, and where such big economies, and look at the economy of the UK, look at the economy of Japan. So where will they have the people to run that economy? So they have to look up to the countries like us, where we can send them, but only if we have the right skill set, if we are prepared for it. Are we prepared for it? I think we need to work towards it. That is something which we're going to take us out of the challenges which Harun Sahib has discussed, which Javed Sahib has discussed, IMFs and everything. But for that, we need to start from ourselves. We talk about a lot of, we have not been able to export cars, we have not been export anything, but we have to start thinking about, we have to start thinking about things which are being locally produced. Why can't we do that? Why do we have to import soya? Why do we have to import, lentil? I mean, being an agriculture country, which used to be 40% of the GDP, now it's gone to 20% now. So we have to think beyond that. And I think through ICT and emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, robotics, we talk about it, but we have to put them in place when it comes to industrial IoT. until unless we don't do that. That's the biggest advantage we're going to get out of it. So we built motorways in the 90s, which was a great thing to do. But the main objective of building motorways was that we're going to have industrial cities around it. That's where we're going to actually take the full advantage of it. Unfortunately, not being able to do that. We missed the cycle of connectivity in 3G and 4G in 2000, late 2000. We started late, and now it feels like we're going to miss 5G as well. And we should not be doing that, because if we miss that technological cycle again, we'll be left behind. So in my opinion, in my humble knowledge which I have, I think ICT is something which can take Pakistan ahead than a lot of other countries, and also take us from the difficulties which we are having right now. And then somebody also talked about cybersecurity. I think I don't know if anybody is aware, or I just know about it. The cybersecurity jobs are the most in-demand jobs in the world these days. And why do we have in Pakistan every day hearing about this, about the video leaks and audio leaks and the, websites being hacked? Because there are two things which I feel very strongly about that. We do not invest in human capital of cybersecurity because we don't have the required skill set to handle that, because we feel that someone who has done his IT will be able to handle cybersecurity. No, it's not like that. Secondly, we do not financially invest on infrastructure to have a resilient cybersecurity. So we have the firewalls that can come across. And I think we have to start thinking about it. We have to evolve. And what government can do? Government can just do legislation. And I think government has done enough legislation. But implementation of those legislation is at the private sector as well as the government sector. And then also we need to have enough resources to look after. FIE established for cybersecurity in 2007 doing, but what they are looking right now is this, fake Facebook accounts, child pornography, nothing else, not more to it. And I don't know if they have, I have my doubts if they have the required skill sets or have the resources to overcome the way the cyber crimes are taking place. So for all that, we need to have a very comprehensive approach towards policy making, towards implementation, and towards which I also would like to mention, towards an economy which is running parallel to our white economy, which is, some people say it's 2 times more, some people say 2.5 times more. We have to bring them into digital phase. Until we do not break them, I think it's going to be very difficult for us to succeed. And that's the only way we can have a transparent and more efficient processes also in terms of the government sector as well. So I think in the end, I would just wrap up by just having a very strong infrastructure build of e-commerce, e-governance, and most importantly, financial fintech, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We would like to open up the floor for questions, if you guys have any questions. No, did you raise your hand? Did you?
Assalamu alaikum. Great session. My question is to Sir Harun. Sir, how do you see the aspect of rural development? Last time I checked, we are majority rural country still, and there is a trend of rural to urban migration, which is putting strain on our cities as well. How do you see urban development, again, in the context of what you have already stated and what Javed Sabeh said in terms of access to telecommunication, in terms of access to skills, technologies, and how does government policy comes around to develop and enable the rural economies? Thank you, sir.
You want to take a couple of questions?
So we'll take a few more. The gentleman at the back. We'll take a few.
Thank you, sir. It's a very good presentation. I have 2 questions. First is, anybody from you, a brief for all of us to educate, what sort of agreement our state has been made with the social media like Facebook, YouTube, to control hate speech or blasphemy, etc. If brief, something like that. And the second is, what we have seen that we have some sort of policies or draft policies, but हमें जो problem नजर आ रहा है वो ये है कि जो हमारा legislator है असल में वो कन्विंस नहीं है आपकी, स्पेशली जो आप साइबर सिक्योरिटी के हवाले से। सो माय क्वेश्चन इज दैट हाउ वी कैन कन्विंस आवर लेजिस्लेटर अबाउट साइबर सिक्योरिटी, कि क्या साइबर सिक्योरिटी होनी चाहिए और इसकी हमारी स्टेट को जरूरत क्या है। तो मेरा ख्याल है कि ये पहला पॉइंट है, उसके बाद पॉलिसी जो है वो दूसरी चीज आती है। थैंक यू।
Assalamu alaikum. I am Muhammad Wasi Qasim from PCS department, NDU, currently student. And I want to ask from Mr. Javed, as Pakistan is ranked in 4th place in freelancing, and there is it means opportunity. But from the public policy aspect, Pakistani government, what steps they should take in Pakistan to enhance, to cultivate industry 4.0. Thank you.
उनसे भी एक ले लेते हैं, फिर हम will move to responses.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Hussein. I am from Gilgit-Baltistan. We want to ask a question about how to build an infrastructure between farmers to market our, because we are an agricultural country, and also we have a lot of things about cultures. So how we can build the technological infrastructure through government or private sector to have a smooth supply line from business to market and farmers to market. Thank you.
Rural development and this infrastructure question, very briefly. देखिए, getting into, first of all of you, your research community में आया करते हैं, we need to keep on looking at data very carefully. You know, there are lots of खास तौर पे these wonderful talk shows we hear. It speaks about, you know, hypothetical चीजों के ऊपर जो evidence based नहीं होती ना. तो जैसे मैंने कहा कि in terms of our GDP, our you need to differentiate between agriculture sector and rural development. दोनों फर्क सवाल आते हैं ना. So जो हमारी contribution है agriculture sector की, वो तो 20% है. जो job creation है in the rural sector, that is about 42%, direct and indirect at this point in time. So it's very significant जो उसके अंदर हो. लेकिन जो jobs create हो रहे हैं वो बहुत low level के, क्योंकि हमारी जो मैंने बात की कि ना तो production बढ़ रही है ना productivity. अब आपके सवाल के there are 2-3 angles. One is the political angle. So in terms of rural development, is that a constituency of your politician? Politicians respond to constituency, ठीक है ना? और अगर उनकी constituency है, तो what are they demanding? Now, one is an academic debate. So I used to talk to lots of MNAs and MPs कि आपका voter आपसे मांग क्या रहा है rural sector में ना? Are they asking for development? To answer your question. अब जब वो वोट लेने जाता है, तो I was actually surprised that in most of the rural constituencies, the voters were neither asking for education nor asking for health. ना वो skills मांग रहे थे. वो 3 चीजें मांगते हैं. Number 1 is कि उनके जो disputes हैं उनको आप resolve कैसे कर सकते हैं. State institutions जो उनको harass कर रहे हैं, आप उनको बचा कैसे सकते हैं. Let's be very honest. That's very different from the academic argument. तो incentive आपके legislator के पास आता है कि इसका मसला हल कराओ. You know, इसको एक गैस लगवा दो या सड़क बना दो. So I'll get the votes, right? Now things are changing. अगर आप politically देखें, एक पार्टी ने सोचा कि वो सड़कें और पुल बना के जीत जाएंगे. एक पार्टी ने सोचा कि वो बेनजीर इनकम सपोर्ट प्रोग्राम से रूरल में पैसा फेंक के जीत जाएंगे. तीसरा सोच रहा है कि जो अर्बन यूथ है, मैं उसको मोबिलाइज किया हुआ है, वहां से जीत जाऊंगा, राइट? एंड फ्रैंकली माय फ्रेंड्स इन द पॉलिटिकल regime, they have no clue के मूड किधर जा रहा है. We don't have that research capability कि आगे. So 2-3 elements होते हैं. First question is how to make it a priority. जहां अपॉर्चुनिटी है, पूरी दुनिया इस वक्त फूड सिक्योरिटी से घबरा रही है। आप इन्फ्लेशन, आपकी फूड इन्फ्लेशन 30% से ऊपर है इस वक्त, हम इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो देयर इज एन अपॉर्चुनिटी कि हम जितने आपके दाएं में मुल्क हैं, वेस्टर्न चाइना, मिडिल ईस्ट, वो सब फूड इंपोर्टर है। सो इफ वी मेक इट ए प्रायोरिटी बनाने का क्या मतलब होता है? ये पैनल ने भी बातचीत की है कि आईटी शुड बी आवर प्रायोरिटी बताने के 3 मतलब होते हैं। एक तो जो मैंने ट्रेड ऑफ की बात की, आपके पास कहीं इन्वेस्टमेंट के, पब्लिक के पैसे कहीं बाहर से नहीं आएंगे। यू हैव टू क्लोज सम शॉप एंड मेक इट अ विनर। अगर आपने आईटी को रखना है, उसको विनर बनाना है, तो कुछ तो बंद करना पड़ेगा ना। इसी तरह अगर आपने रूरल या एग्रीकल्चर इकोनॉमी को बढ़ाना है, तो पहले तो उसको प्रायोरिटी बनानी पड़ेगी। एंड यू हैव टू हैव ए ट्रेड ऑफ कि जी मैंने अब यहां पर काम करना है और ये नहीं करना, ये नहीं कि मैंने ये भी करना है, then you are spread too thinly. Second है, we have a very flawed financial sector. हमारे पास कोई भी डेवलपमेंट बैंक नहीं है इन द रियल सेंस। हमारे पास कमर्शियल बैंक्स हैं जो रिस्क नहीं लेते हैं। रिस्क फाइनेंसिंग के बगैर, देखिए जो फाइनेंसिंग होती है ना, वो लेवरेज करती है इन्वेस्टमेंट, तो वो हमारे पास गैप है। तो वहां स्टेट बैंक का रोल आता है और पॉलिसी का रोल आता है कि जी पैसा कहाँ से आएगा। थर्ड इज जो हमने बात की है कि हाउ टू नाउ इंक्रीज टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड स्किल्स। सिंगापुर ने 1978 में ये फैसला किया था कि हमने एफिशिएंसी बेस्ड स्किल्स छोड़ के नॉलेज बेस्ड स्किल में जाना। दैट्स ए प्रायोरिटी। वी आर स्टिल स्टक ऑन एफिशिएंसी बेस्ड के प्लम्बर कैसे बनाना है, इलेक्ट्रिशियन कैसे बनाना है। सो ये जो टेक्नोलॉजी को अगर यूज करना है, सीपेक लिंक कर रहा हूं, we need to make it a priority. Food security में अपॉर्चुनिटी बहुत है if we add value to it. Particularly अब तो हम चीज भी इंपोर्ट नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि पैसे खत्म हो गए हैं और महंगा हो गया। So it will be very useful to start making it here and make some investments here. So मेरी आपको ये 3 areas हैं: financing, public policy trade-off and human capital development through technology. जब तक हम ये 3 नहीं करेंगे, will continue to be stuck in the framework of economy जो हेल्प नहीं कर रही। आपका सवाल है जी कनेक्टिविटी का, कि उसके अंदर तीन तरह की कनेक्टिविटी है। एक तो फिजिकल है, फिजिकल कनेक्टिविटी तो सड़कों से होती है। दूसरी है नॉलेज, जो आपका प्रोड्यूस, देयर इज जो मिडल मैन होता है। ये जो हमारी इन्फ्लेशन है, उसके अंदर मिडल मैन मेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ मनी। वाई, जिसको हम इकोनॉमिक्स में कहते हैं इंफॉर्मेशन एसिमेट्री, कि वो आपको पता नहीं होता कि मार्केट पे कीमतें क्या चल रही हैं, एंड दे बाय चीपर, सेल एक्सपेंसिव। सो इट इज द फेल्यूर ऑफ मार्केट रेगुलेशन, क्योंकि हमने बहुत मिडलमैन क्रिएट किए हुए। सो सेकंड इज द नॉलेज कनेक्टिविटी, और वहां आईटी कैन डू वंडर्स। लेकिन अगर आपको सेल फोन पे सुबह सारी मंडी की प्राइसेस आ जाए, देन द मिडलमैन की जो है वो फर्क हो जाए। थर्ड इज कि हमारे पास लोकल गवर्नमेंट नहीं है। जहां हम फंसे हुए हैं कि हमारा लेजिस्लेटर सड़कें बनाता है, जबकि उसका काम कानून बनाना है। वो काउंसलर का काम है सड़कें बनाना, काउंसलर डजंट एग्जिस्ट। सो देयर इज अ स्ट्रक्चरल फ्लॉ इन द गवर्नेंस सिस्टम, कि जिसका काम कानून बनाना है वो सड़कें बना रहा है, जिसने ये आपकी कनेक्टिविटी करनी है वो नॉन एग्जिस्टेंट है। सिमिलरली फंड्स जो हैं वो सारे के सारे प्रोविंस के अंदर सेंट्रलाइज्ड है, नीचे नहीं जा पाते हैं। तो जब तक वो नहीं जाएगा, ये कनेक्टिविटी ना पॉलिसी की, ना फिजिकल, ना नॉलेज की हो पाएगी। सो द आंसर इज हमें स्ट्रक्चर्स बदलने पड़ेंगे। वी आर समहाउ ऑब्सेस्ड विद इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, पता नहीं फीता काट के मजा आता है क्या आता है। वी जस्ट कीप ऑन मेकिंग फ्लाईओवर्स एंड ब्रिजेस। मैंने दुनिया का कोई वजीर आजम नहीं देखा जो आते ही कहे जी कि मैं 12 को का पुल बनाने लगा। मेरा मतलब है यू नीड टू मेक पब्लिक पॉलिसी। लेकिन ये एक माइंडसेट है, मे बी दे थिंक इससे वोट मिलते हैं, कोई तो इंसेंटिव होगा ना। आई एम नॉट लुकिंग एट नेगेटिव के ठेके दे रहे हैं ये कर, बट द इंसेंटिव इज वी नीड टू हैव विजिबल थिंग्स व्हिच वी कैन शो क्विकली। पब्लिक पॉलिसी जो है, तो हमें प्रोजेक्ट और पॉलिसी में फर्क करने की जरूरत है एट द टॉप। हमारी पॉलिटिकल लीड, मेरा जो 30 साल का तजुर्बा है, जब भी मैंने उनसे पॉलिसी की बात की है, दे मूव इट टू ए प्रोजेक्ट कि बजट कितना चाहिए, क्या इसमें से नजर आएगा, नॉट ऑन द सॉफ्टवेयर साइड ऑफ इट जिनकी आप जिक्र कर रहे हैं यूनिवर्सिटियों की। तो ये है सूरत हाल। दैट इज हाउ द प्रोग्रेसिव इकोनॉमीज वर्क: फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर, public policy, and investment in right kind of skills. Sorry, it was a bit longer, Takri.
Hate speech emerged.
It's funny, President Saab yesterday talked about this when Trump was trying to buy, I think, or Elon was trying to buy Twitter. So now countries are negotiating against these social media platforms, etc. Social media platforms are very tricky. इन्होंने बगैर किसी फिल्टर के हर इंसान को पब्लिशर बना दिया, right? So you, in your own right, just because you have access and are in the wrong mood that day, can do whatever you want, which has endless, which can have unbelievable impacts. और इसी का अमेरिका भी शिकार रहा है, because ट्रम्प के इलेक्शन में रशियन मेडलिंग हुई थी with this as well. So it's not just hate speech, it's across the board as well. Now, ये जो connection of the mind ये इन्होंने provide कर दिया, जो कि पहले जिंदगी में कभी भी नहीं होता था, इसके बहुत सारे constructs हैं. अगर आप देखें कि how do people connect, how do people communicate around it, उसके एक तो social construct आ जाता है, उसके ऊपर cultural construct, और हमारे यहाँ बहुत बड़ा religious construct भी है. तो अगर आप इन तीनों angular aspects को देखें, तो first of all, how do you define hate speech? Because hate speech to you might be something else to somebody else as well, right? जितने भी ये कार्टून वाला मामला रहा है, वो उसको freedom of speech कहते हैं, हम उसे कहते हैं कि हमारे लिए एक religious challenge है, etc. So जब आपने दुनिया भर के इंसानों को एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे ला के उनके हाथ में एक भोंपू बाजा दे दिया है कि अब आप you can say whatever you want, then it will take some time for some of these things to settle down. हमारे construct में, हमारे मुल्क में बहुत दफा उनको समझ नहीं आता कि regulators आपने बात की, and there are a lot of us involved in this as well, and not just हमारा इदारा नहीं, मैं वैसे बात कर रहा हूँ. YouTube पे कोई ऐसी वीडियो आई है तो YouTube बंद कर दो, right? Without realizing that YouTube is a source of education, it's a source of employment, it's a source of enablement for a lot of other things as well. Similarly, other platforms like that. So हमें, जो मैंने पहले जिक्र किया था, एक तो हमारी हुकूमती construct बहुत heavy है, बहुत सारे convoluted है. दूसरी हमारी understandings of, जैसे सर ने भी कहा, policies कौन सी हैं, skill set लोगों के क्या हैं to guide that, और ये जो 3 angles पे मैंने बात की, उनका input लेते हुए हमने किस तरह इन पे action लेने. So पाकिस्तानी context में hate speech को define करना, उसको manage करना, उसको आहिस्ता आहिस्ता eradicate करना फर्क है. ये challenging है. It's not easy to go to Facebook and say कि जी आप ये बंद कर दें, because they believe in the other mindset as well. So आहिस्ता आहिस्ता what I'm also seeing is कि लोगों में भी थोड़ा सा शऊर पैदा हो रहा है, because बहुत सारी अब ऐसे challenges पैदा होना शुरू हो गए हैं जो Facebook पे लिखने के वजह से. I'll give an example. There are some studies that suggest कि 8 out of 10 divorce proceedings now have the word Facebook in it somewhere, because somewhere or the other something was written that had some sort of a Facebook connect to that, right? ये भी सोचने वाली बातें हैं कि ये social connectivity without filters, without adab, without tehzeeb, is now taking over the conversation, which is emulated into hate speech. So it'll evolve over time. हमारे यहाँ आहिस्ता आहिस्ता लोगों में भी और जो the powers to be में भी आहिस्ता इसका शऊर पैदा हो रहा है. I think ये हमेशा chicken and egg होगा. ये कभी नहीं होगा एकदम से बंद कर दिया. ये आहिस्ता इस तरह होगा कि वो कुछ बंद करेंगे हमारे कहने पे, फिर कोई नई चीज आएगी, फिर हमारे कहने पे होगा. I think it'll continue to evolve. That would be my answer to that.
Interestingly enough, like moving this conversation to how do ministries assess the policy? How do you see your role as a universal service fund plays out in that context?
As far as the Universal Service Fund is concerned, so any policy which has been made has always been very progressive. It's one of the best example of public-private partnership. We've got equal representation from the private sector and equal representation from the private sector. And that is a success, and that's where we have to move towards. So we need to build organizations and companies and corporations which have a public-private partnership, because the funds are being contributed by the private sector and then utilized by the public sector in a very transparent manner, where all the stakeholders are part of it, including the government and the private sector. So as far as the policies are concerned, I think that the policies exist. A lot of legislation is there, but I think implementation is a challenge. We do not for that. And then, but there's certain policy which needs to evolve with time, especially when it comes to IT. You cannot have an IT policy which has been made in 2005 or 10, even 15. I think it needs to be reviewed after every second year or maybe third year, even earlier than that. So yes, on the helm of the affairs who are responsible for that, I think it has to be, they have to take those initiative that the policy needs to be reviewed periodically. And then people who are implementing, like us, at different organizations, we also need to push them that, the new things are happening, changes are happening. Until we do not push them, or we do not highlight, or we do not raise the voices, because a lot of people, either are bureaucrats or politicians, maybe do not have the right exposure of technology, or maybe do not have the right background. So people like us who are kind of a subject expert or something, we need to start pushing them and telling them that needs to change. Until we don't do our also job, it's not, I guess, fair enough to expect them that they will do their job. So like Harun Sahab mentioned, and I think very rightly mentioned when he was talking about the politician, they will always look out at what is something which they can sell, but they will not talk about the policy which is going to maybe have an impact down the road 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. And I really like the example of Manmohan Singh, and I also said that example to a lot of other people. That's where they changed the whole economic landscape, and that's where the development has started. I think we are also at this position, or at this place, that way we need to have some radical changes. And we have to stop industries like sugar, and we can get less, or even fertilizer, which we can get less from outside. Why do we have to do that? Yes, we do fear that we will have some loss of jobs, but that's when we will find new jobs. And new jobs will be created when we'll have a trade-off. And it has to do. And then then we also talk about when we about our policies and with our exports and everything. But what is missing is value addition. We are not focusing on value addition when it comes to industrialization as well. So these policies, maybe, as I said, the bureaucrats and the politicians aren't aware, but people who are expert, they should push them that this value addition should be part of it. Until they will not be there, we will not be able to succeed. Thank you.
So Alan,
Hello.
Alan, before we come to you, we'll go with a few more questions, and then we'll start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks.
This is Laura Firth from the Institute of Regional Studies. So out of sheer curiosity, when you talk about the revolutions, technological revolutions, and in context of Pakistan, so there is this gap between the tech-enabled minds, the young tech-enabled minds, and the policymakers who have to facilitate the needs of those minds. For instance, when you talk about the freelancers, Pakistan leading the freelancers community, and when you talk about the challenges that these freelancers face, filing self-employment taxes in Pakistan for freelancers is one of the top challenges, right? So these people, the government, the policymakers have to facilitate these challenges, have to facilitate these tech-enabled minds when we talk about the technological revolution, because the future of jobs, and just like Mr. Chaudhary mentioned that we are losing jobs, but we'll find new ones. But how will you find new ones when you're not opening the avenues and you're not opening those areas of technology where you will create the jobs? Because even if you have 25,000 graduates of computer and science, you're only recruiting 3,000 because you don't have the places or the recruitment centers or the areas where you can recruit those people. So what is your take on this?
Humayun Iqbal Shami from Pakistan Economic Forum. I have a question from Harun sir. Just observation and question also, that you said about that we are lacking of the policy, governance policy, you know, in this country. The thing is that if you look at the credential of the bureaucrats and the 22 grades in Pakistan, and looking at their educational qualification, about 70% of them having a public policy and the good governance degree from the renowned universities like Harvard, Boston, and Oxford on the state expenses. But having such a big pool of these economic experts, you know, still we are lacking the policy, you know. How come?
So just need two clarifications from you. Coming back to CPEC, we had the initial project were in the power sector, were called low-hanging fruits. Then we had long-term projects like the pipeline and the railway. On ML1, I'm hearing that China has declined to finance it. So how do you see when the long-term project would conclude? Or do you think they would conclude in time, and by then their feasibility would be as it is now, or it will change? The other things that I want to ask you, because you have been in the right place at the right time, why privatization fails in Pakistan? Why there are no takers for privatization? Thank you.
So Alan, if you could really tell us, like, how did you get, or perhaps how did the Philippine government, the legislature found cybersecurity as an essential component to their policy decisions or actions?
Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, in the government, you need to have first the strategy, and then from that strategy, you create a policy based on the key imperatives. So in the Philippines, after the publication of the first strategy, we issued 3 memorandum circulars as government policy as regards cybersecurity. So the first one is to strengthen our critical infrastructure by speeding up our connectivity, by bridging the digital divide, by developing the cyber workforce, by integrating cybersecurity into the curriculum. Those are policy directions. And I understand these policies could not be implemented without the support of the political and bureaucracy. No? So in the Philippines, there are some battle between the political appointees and the bureaucrats. So as a public in the context of public administration, I believe there's need to strengthen skills in the bureaucracy, because some politicians or political appointees are leading the cybersecurity technical bureaus or department, but they don't have the skills. And these are some problems. That is why some strategies, some policies could not be implemented. So another thing is the integration of cybersecurity into the curriculum. So if we want to develop workforce, if we want to increase our pool of experts in cyber, so we need to partner with the academe, we need to partner with the industry, and develop curriculum, in order to boost our cybersecurity capacity, our capability as regards preventing cybersecurity threats. So the government really plays a vital role in the implementation of cybersecurity policies that the government has also crafted. So these are problems in public administration, in public policy, that those who are implementing it are sometimes not technical enough, or do not understand enough the policy that has been crafted by the other departments. So what we did was to create this awareness, partner with other educational sector, academic sector, in order to boost expertise and technical capabilities of the Filipino people. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. So Javed, to Larib's question, if we are perhaps living in a country where predominantly how people think, we're still, come from that print era generation, to her question, and to a lot of alpha generation that grew up with smartphones in their hand. And that's how their life decision and choices will happen. So how do you address those jobs and how do you address those minds?
So one correction, Larry, to your question was 25,000 में से जो 3,000 deployable है, it's not because बाकियों के पास jobs available नहीं है यहाँ पे, it's because they're not good enough. So maybe I wasn't able to explain that well. Out of the 25,000 people that graduate, only 3,000 are good enough to be placed on jobs. That is the point I was trying to bring home, which is a very sad point as well. लेकिन इसके बरक्स एक बड़ी interesting चीज हो रही है. You talked about the freelance economy and how that either aids or is a challenge for a lot of the freelancers as well. Now, as you think about how the future of jobs is starting to happen, right? Think of Uber या Careem या InDrive, etc. उसमें हो क्या रहा है? उसमें हो ये रहा है कि there is a tool, a skill, and a platform, right? So a skill set through a tool, आपने एक platform पे लगा के काम करना शुरू कर दिया, and you're starting to earn in whatever currencies, etc. अब इसके 2-3 challenges हैं. आपने कहा how can the government facilitate these people? तो इनका जो एक free flowing, getting business, going to these platforms and upping their skills and doing more and more and earning more money, the first facilitation the government should do is not interfere. Let them do it, right? Because if अगर interference हो गया तो वो 3 या 2 के बजाय वो 12 पे चला जाएगा. So my suggestion will be to all the governmental authorities, let's let them be, because this became to be in spite of government, not with the government's help. पहली बात तो ये होगी. But now that that's happened and a lot of this foreign remittance is coming in, बहुत सारे इसके fathers बन गए. They want to take credit somehow or the other to sir, your point or Harris's point. They wanted to politicize this as well कि जी हमारे region में हुआ है, हमने या तो laptop दिए थे या connectivity दी थी या ये किया था वगैरह, right? All those factors have also contributed, by the way, right? If we take the इसकी root अगर देखें तो the original laptop scheme was the foundation of it. It's the rural connectivity that Harris and his organization is doing is what is letting that go as well. तो ये हर तरह का काम होता रहा है. Now ये tax economy में कैसे आता है? That's a challenge, because when we spoke to multitudes of financial services organizations, वहां स्ट्रगल ये हो रहा था कि जब एक बच्चा वहां पे फाइवर पे या अपवर्क पे कोई एक वेबसाइट बना के $200 कमा लेता है, there was no mechanism to bring that money back to their accounts, right? So, we have this love affair with PayPal for some reason, I don't know why, but there are 5,000 other financial services providers like this globally. So what Payoneer did, which is another one of these, you all know them, they did something smart. They came to Pakistan and they realized कि ये इतनी बढ़ रही है ये freelance वाला action. They worked with State Bank and piloted a program with JS Bank where they put in $2 million in an account, and any kid who would go make that money would come in, they would locally pay them from that money, and it sort of started generating that revenue for them, and freelancers वाले बच्चों का challenge वो वाला खत्म हो गया. What banks also didn't have was a freelance account. They were not able to peg this money coming in into the IT sector, etc. उसमें बच्चों के अपना या अपने भाई का, बहन का, वालिद का, वालदा का, पप्पो का, किसी ना किसी के अकाउंट में पैसे आ जाते थे. So they were not able to figure out what is this against. वो थोड़ा बेहतर हुआ है. But इसमें टैक्स में एक और बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है. What a lot of these freelancer kids have figured out is that you don't have to bring 100% money back to Pakistan and pay the tax. You can bring 30% back. That's still good enough in dollars. Keep the rest in Germany or England or anywhere else as well. So when we talk at policy level, and Harish, you've been probably in some of these meetings as well. ये challenge ना सिर्फ freelancers का है, but ये software houses का भी है. वो भी सारे पैसे नहीं लाते. Similarly, जो पिछले साल $350 million की startup pledge money हुई थी through VCs, etc. That $350 million was pegged to Pakistan, but it never made it to Pakistan. यहाँ basic operational salary के पैसे आते हैं, बाकी are kept in, outside whatever for flow of money. So हमें हुकूमत को ये समझ के कि अगर हमने tech driven economy की तरफ जाना है और tech को enable कराना है, बाकी सारे sectors जो हमारे are lagging behind, which includes the agris of the world and even defense and ed tech, another one that needs massive digital transformation. हम ये पीछे से इनको उभारेंगे कैसे? And for that, these policies, these laws, in the context of Pakistan, not in the truest context of a framework that was built in London or Germany or New York, etc., or even Beijing. We have to understand कि हमारे local ways क्या हैं. Based on that, adaptation of those frameworks into a localized framework that enables it for our betterment. And I think अगर हम इसको इस तरह करना शुरू करें, तो we'll also see कि a lot of these kids जो कि constantly are working on the most cutting edge things in freelance world are able to bring that to the startups, are able to bring that to the software houses. Last week we had a session with Nikop, sir, about hardware engineering. So जो CPEC की आप बात करें, the China and US war is on silicon chips. It's no secret. So one of the things that I asked the Chinese ambassador the other day was, how could we partake and help you as part of that bigger economy, right? Because hardware engineering is a very specialized skill set. It also requires a very heavy investment. ये जो fabrication facilities होती हैं कि वो बने कैसे, लेकिन उसका डिजाइन में आपको facilities नहीं चाहिए, सिर्फ दिमाग चाहिए. उसकी testing में आपको facilities नहीं चाहिए. That itself is trillions of dollars that we can assist in as well. So holistic rethink, understanding कि globally tech जा किधर रहा है, सिर्फ ऊपर वाले सतह पे सॉफ्टवेयर पे नहीं, बल्कि आपने जो बात की across the board हर industry tech as a horizontal हर industry को enable कैसे कर रहा है. पीछे आप इतने, do we have enough data centers to partake in that computing power? हम cyber security की जरूर बात करते हैं, but in my opinion we don't have enough of an infrastructure to secure yet, right? हमें उसको भी साथ साथ बनाना है और उन skill sets को भी साथ साथ लेके चलना है. और I think we're at a point where, Lego बचपन में सब में खेला हो, तो a lot of those pieces are there. वो green वाला जो एक वो platform होता था and you would make things around, they're there. थोड़ी सी connection की जरूरत है and थोड़े सा एक साथ मिलके vision alignment की जरूरत है. I think given now that people understand कि ये जरूरी भी है और करना भी है, I would hope कि हम थोड़े से जरा रिबन से बाहर आके लैपटॉप और वॉइस रिकग्निशन की तरफ ज्यादा चले जाएं. That'll be my take.
Pipeline and buildings.
I think कुछ चीजें, there are some things they get stuck. जो आप कह रहे हैं, government की interference, I genuinely think ये जो सारे cross-cutting सवालात हैं. There's too much government in everything with very little understanding of what to do. 2020 में कितने 23 साल हो गए, makes me feel older and older. So I was leading the team which set up Securities and Exchange Commission here. तो मेरे जो बॉस थे शौकत अजीज साहब, वो फिर उनकी प्रमोशन हो गई, वो प्राइम मिनिस्टर बन गए. So he took me to Karachi on the very first visit, and we had business community like this sitting there. कुछ चीजें stuck. उन्होंने कहा he liked to show off the grand halls. He was the prime minister. तो उन्होंने कहा जी आप मुझे बताएं अभी मैं ease of doing business के लिए while sitting here, what can I do? एक चीज. तो अभी मुझे याद है एक मेमन खड़ा हुआ वहां से, उसने कहा सर आप कराची ना आया करें. That reflects basically कि there is far too much. आप आ गए हैं, सिक्योरिटी है, सड़कें बंद हैं, कारोबार खराब हो रहा है. So there is far too much government in every sector, and we are control freaks for बन गए. जो करंट प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैं, जब चीफ मिनिस्टर थे, उन्होंने मुझे एक दफा कहा आपके सवाल पे फ्रीलांसर्स पे, he said जब मैं नया चीफ मिनिस्टर था, exactly knew कौन क्या बिजनेस कर. अब मुझे पता नहीं, there are lots of these young people making lots of money. And I'm very worried. I said, Chief Minister, you should not be worried. It's a good thing. They are not coming to you. The moment they come to government, these guys will be in trouble. So ये आपके लिए अच्छी चीज है. But the question is कि ये जो freelancers हैं, इनको काम करना है. Keep state away from that. That's my only, advice. आपके very quickly जी. जो पहला सवाल है, bureaucrats जो हैं, इतना पढ़ के आते हैं, काम करें. I'm guilty party जी from two angles. Because when I World Bank ने scholarships Kennedy School के रखे हुए थे, हर बंदा चला गया उसके ऊपर. So I was a director at the World Bank at that time. I think two angles. एक तो incentive or accountability structure is totally skewed. When your promotions and accountability are done on the basis of patronage and loyalty, then degrees, no degrees, they don't matter. You got to be very clear. अगर मुझे efficiency या performance पे judge किया जाएगा, same is for our elections. IMF क्यों नहीं हो रहा? मैं दूसरी साइड पे रहा हूं बहुत साल. The question, मैं तो बिल्कुल straight बात करता हूं, करनी भी चाहिए. We need to be honest to ourselves. वो इसलिए नहीं हो रहा that we want to buy elections. हम performance पे नहीं लड़ना चाहते. हमें budget चाहिए, हम MNS को पैसे दें, वो आगे distribute करें और वोट खरीदें. अगर आपने performance पे लड़ना हो तो आपका IMF के agreement कल हो जाएगा. Because what they are saying is that don't spend that money there, spend it somewhere else, जहां आपको चाहिए. So we need to be very clear. Incentive structure or accountability दोनों bureaucracy में इस वक्त नहीं है. So that has led to an incompetence. Everybody is on loyalty side. और जो अच्छे हैं, bright हैं, वो मेरे जैसे जो जब हम donors में थे, वो हमारे लिए काम करते हैं, हम 10 गुना ज्यादा पे करते हैं, consultant बना देते हैं, वो खुश रहते हैं, काम करते हैं. So we actually distort the market. Very clearly. Let's be very honest. That's how. आपका पहला सवाल. ML1 and the large job के infrastructure हैं जी. देखिए, चाइना ने भी गलती की है कि when they went into state-to-state infrastructure projects, they did not study our macroeconomic vulnerabilities well. अब अगर let's be honest, अगर हम उनको IPP की पेमेंट नहीं कर पा रहे, why should they take larger risks? क्योंकि फॉरेन करेंसी में पे बैक तो करना होगा कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को. रेलवे तो एक्सपोर्ट नहीं करता, वो पैसा कहां से आएगा? सो एक तो चाइना खुद कॉशियस. सेकंड, अगर आप प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टर हो तो आप करंट रेलवे की मिनिस्ट्री में पैसा डालेंगे? I'll just ask you a question. So we need to look at the governance structures जहां इन्वेस्टर पैसा डालना चाहे. तीसरा, चीन की रियलिटी वहां पर चेंज हो रही. The post-COVID China is very different. अगर आप प्रेसिडेंट शी की अब 5 या 20th कांग्रेस की प्रायोरिटीज देखें, than what it was 3 years back. अब वो less risky investments करेंगे. They will go for, उनकी इसलिए ज्यादा पैसा ईस्ट एशिया की तरफ जा रहा है. तो आपका आंसर, it will be delayed. हमारे में भी कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है, ना स्टेबिलिटी है, ना गवर्नेंस है. I would actually not like to get into this governance structure by any investor, at this point in time. बाकी आपने कहा जी कि प्राइवेटाइजेशन नहीं हो रही. देखिए, वो मेरे बहुत दोस्त हैं, सुब्रो साहब खफा हो जाते हैं. मैंने टीवी पे भी 3-4 दफा कहा है कि आप प्राइवेटाइजेशन कमीशन को बंद क्यों नहीं करते. देखिए, एक इदारा है जिसने 6 साल में सिर्फ सर्विसेज इंटरनेशनल होटल बेचा, और वो डील भी गड़बड़. So the capability question is very clear. I'm sure मैं इस panel में किसी को दे देता हूँ hotel में, she could have sold it at a much better price. The question is, it's an auction house. 3 factors on a serious analytical. एक तो हमने ये कभी भी इदारे ministry आना ही थे. Just to create jobs and have a minister, हमने इनको ministry बना दिया. ना planning commission ministry था, ना privatization commission ministry था, ना board of investment ministry था. ये टेक्निकल स्पेस क्रिएट की गई थी जहां प्रोफेशनल्स आके काम करें. हमने जब मिनिस्ट्री बना दिया है तो वही एस्टेब्लिशमेंट डिवीजन है. आई विल बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, वेरी नाइस पीपल, माय ब्यूरोक्रेटिक कॉलीग्स जो मेरे साथ काम करते थे, वो बैलेंस शीट नहीं पढ़ सकते तो इन्वेस्टर से क्या बात करेंगे? बिकॉज यू पुट जर्नलिस्ट्स यू नो देयर. सो प्राइवेटाइजेशन कमीशन वगैरह को मेरी पहली रिकमेंडेशन तो ये है, they should be converted back. It's an auction house, keep it as an auction house and put, you know, usko aap institutionally independent kar de, CEO लगाएं, board लगाएं, उनसे हम ये 10 चीजें बेचनी है, हम तुम्हें legal protection देंगे, you sell it. वो बेच देंगे, इसमें कोई rocket science नहीं है. मैंने, अगर आपको याद हो, ये famous LNG plants को privatize कर रहा था कतर के साथ, और जून 2019 मेरी डेडलाइन थी. आज आप डेट देख लें. So I rest my case. कि वो कहा, और मैं हर हफ्ते मॉनिटर करता था कहां से कहां गया. But the question is, जब capability भी नहीं है, security भी नहीं है, so why should a bureaucrat take a decision? So हमें इनको अलहदा करने की जरूरत है, और ताकि ये काम कर सकें. मार्केट को सिग्नल जाना जरूरी है that we mean business. We keep on selling that we are open for business, but we don't basically give them the evidence that we know how to do business. देखो ना, एक तो अच्छी विश लिस्ट है, डिजायर है, हम वो बेची जाते हैं. वही जो मैं 21 मिलियन का MBS से लाया था, 21 बिलियन का, अब वो 10 पे आ गया. कतर का जो 15 था वो 3 पे आ गया. एंड आई गारंटी यू हम 3 बिलियन भी नहीं ले पाएंगे. आई एम स्ट्रॉन्ग वर्ड है, बट आई गारंटी यू इन द करंट स्ट्रक्चर दुनिया अब और तरह से चलती है जी. लेकिन अब अरामको से आता है, मेरे पास मैक्रो इकोनॉमिस्ट आता है, ऑयल एक्सपर्ट आता है. विद ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट, हमारा जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी ने 100 काम और करने होते हैं, उसको हम सामने बिठा देते हैं. बिजनेस ऐसे नहीं होता है. वी नीड टू क्रिएट स्पेसेस फॉर प्रोफेशनल टू डू ट्रांजैक्शंस. आई होप आई हैव मैनेज्ड टू आंसर. तो वो मैंने टीवी पे 2 दफा बोल दिया कि बंद कर देना चाहिए, तो सुमरो साहब खफा हो गए. सो अपॉलॉजीज टू सुमरो साहब इफ इज लिसनिंग.
So we're towards the end of the session. We went slightly, my dear apologies, we went slightly over time. It's very difficult to summarize what has been said so far. But my meager attempt would be, from jobs that are not locked in geographies to solar panels being designed and produced thinner than human hair. This is where the world is moving. And the world genuinely moves on whosoever is curious enough to think of an idea, to invent a product or service, and to discover market, which is your people, where to sell those things. So in summary, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alan, for joining us, Javed, Haroon, and Haris. You've been phenomenal speakers. IRS, on the side, IRS has given you some goodies. Don't forget to take them. They're right next to your chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today, the audience, our panelists, our chair. We were very happy to host everyone, and we look forward to more insightful and interactive conversations tomorrow, where the 3rd day of the regional dialogue will be resuming. So hope to see you all here tomorrow, and thank you and Khud Hafiz.